Hello, everybody, and welcome to the August 11th Trips and Traps. I'm Andy Serling, joined by Eric Donovan.
We're going to do something a little bit different for you this week. Instead of focusing in on one horse or, one horse in each race, we're going to take a look at the card from Sunday, August 7th, because a lot was made about this card and the track being speed favoring this day. I think there are mixed results, and I think time will tell. But right now, I think people are jumping to conclusions that this was an ultra speed favoring track.
I could not possibly agree more. There's not enough situations of horses being carried by the racetrack that were improbable winners, that speed was what you needed to have to win in this card. Not saying you want to come from way, way back, but enough horses made moves in this race, and what both Eric and I believe is it was more of a track that maybe favored horses towards the inside of the track.
Yep, we'll take a look at the races, race by race. We'll start off with race number 1, and this was an off-the-turfer at 5.5 furlongs. PALOOZA is the horse that ends up on the lead in here, but look where Indian Tail is, the 13 horse, down on the inside, about 5th, maybe 3 or 4 back from the lead here, and Indian Tail is going to come pretty close here.
Yeah, Indian Tail loses the race by a head, and yes, PALOOZA wired the field. PALOOZA was also the 3-1 second choice, and a horse who had shown promise and been in some tough spots in the 2 starts as a 3-year-old. Indian Tail makes up way too much ground, saved ground, then angled out in the stretch, but if it's a big speed track, I don't think either one of us believes that Indian Tail would have come from within inches of winning.
No, PALOOZA, if it was a big speed track, PALOOZA would have drawn off this race to win by, about 5 or 6. So we'll take a look at race number 2 now on the card. And we're going to look at Flea Flicker and Victory Island, a couple of horses that came from a little bit off the pace.
Yeah, these horses, look, there was a speed in this race, Winning Case, that was a tough horse to make. Okay, so it's not surprising, but you know what? Winning Case got beaten by about 14-plus lengths in this race. If it was a speed track, Winning Case, who's a 2-year-old who had some experience, would have probably hung around a little bit better. And I think it was just a sort of logical type result. First-time starters running out there and winning. There's nothing about this race that indicates that we had some sort of speed bias.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing, absolutely nothing in here that would lead to indicating a speed bias as well. We'll take a look at race number 3, and this one for New York breds. And this one, Doratory and Go Unbridled run 1-2, and they were arguably the 2 best horses in the race.
Especially when the favorite Life's Measure barely ran at all. Doratory stalked the pace, got the lead. Go Unbridled got a nice ride, circled wide in the turn, but was actually angled in by Jose Espinoza. 2-path in the stretch, comes through on the inside, yet is not able to catch Doratory, who's out sort of in the middle of the track. You want to say, oh, it was the speed bias that carried Doratory? These were the second and third choices in a race where the favorite basically didn't show up. So for all intents and purposes, they were sort of the 2 choices. And in fact, you could argue that 1, 2, 3 choices ran 1, 2, 3 with the favorite running a distant 4th. I don't think there's anything about this race that suggests some big speed bias carrying horses.
All right, we'll take a look at another race. Now, this is one race that people might really think, is evidence of a speed bias here. You have Beautiful Nightmare, a horse that had run a maiden claiming races 6 times for Mitch Friedman, had yet to visit the winner's circle, running against first-time starters, which is kind of tricky because you just don't know how good these firsts are. One of them was a heavy favorite, John Terranova's horse, the 3 Purple Cat. Beautiful Nightmare runs away from this field.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. This is one would say, well, this was an improbable long shot. Well, as Eric's pointing out, they're first-time starters running behind it. Maybe they didn't like the mud. Maybe they didn't race. These are all 3-year-old first-time starters that obviously had a myriad of issues. Horse purchased as a weanling, as a yearling, and a 2-year-old sale that took a heck of a long time to get to the races. I don't think you can use that as a great example.
All right, here's the next race. Is race number 5. We're taking a look at Tropical JETSET, who's highlighted now toward the back of the pack. Evans Rocket is up a little bit closer in the field, and here these horses are going to run 1-2. Evans Rocket's going to win the race. Tropical JETSET up for second.
Yeah, and these are horses that spent almost the entire race on the inside, so they probably were helped by the rail. This race also went in 1:27 and a 5th for 7 furlongs, so this was a battle of attrition. If there were some better horses in this race, the horses that ran 1-2 might have run 7th and 8th, but I think the rail helped these horses more than a speed bias because, yeah, the winner was down, towards the lead the whole way, but the second horse made up a ton of ground.
Now, you notice race number 5, the track was harrowed for this race, was sealed for 1-4, so let's keep an eye and see if things change a little bit as we move on throughout the card. Race number 6, and this one, you had a heavy favorite in here in the form of the 4 BUFFUM, who looked like the best horse on paper in here, but he had a speed horse who was a second choice, BULAGA, who really put through in the towel readily.
And I think BULAGA was bet very much because lone speed, look, it's the way the track was playing. Geez, I got to think that BULAGA would have done better than 6th, beating a pole in this race. It was a big speed bias. The favorites ended up running, actually the first and third choice. Nacho Saint was second choice, was third choice only because BULAGA took so much money. The speed track certainly didn't help BULAGA.
No, it did not at all there. We'll move on to race number 7 now. Now, this is another race where you could say, okay, well, if you want to make a case for a speed bias, this is one race you definitely point to. You have Funky Monkey Mama in here who's going to go wire to wire. And this is a horse that, in the past had shown the ability to, run some big races races on the lead. This was a pretty deep field, though, I thought, and I was surprised by this result.
I agree. On the other hand, she had run well enough as a 2-year-old that if she showed improvement, she could easily win a race like this. The problem was the 2 races she ran earlier this year, one of them on the turf, were real duds. Maybe she just got back into form. You want to use this as evidence of a speed track? All right, maybe the track's changing a little bit. They ran 1-2 around. There was a bad favorite in here in Gambling Geraldine. Superior Sarah, who I like, didn't get the lead, and she ran poorly. I'm a little dubious, but okay, I could use that as a slight argument. Then you get this race.
You get this race here, and the winner is NY Not, who made a little bit of a move up the inside there, is in second place now, and this is a horse that, was real impressive and is probably going to be pointed for the spin-away for trainer Michael Matz, running down the favorite, or the one of the favorites, the second choice in here, Dark Nebula. And if this was a speed track, Dark Nebula goes on, and NY Not, probably just chases second through the stretch.
Yeah, or at the very least, it's much, much closer. So either NY Not is the best 2-year-old that we've seen this year, or one of them, or this was a more fairly run race. Also, NY Not spent the majority of the race down on the inside, thinking maybe the inside helped more than the supposed track.
Let's take a look at the honorable miss now. This is race number 9. The winner in here is the 3 Tar Heel Mom. The 5 Beat the Blues. Chases second throughout. And here, now this is a race where I just didn't think it. When they crossed the wire, that Tar Heel Mom was day in day out 5 3/4 lengths better than everyone else in here. Especially considering she'd come off a couple of losses as the favorite out of town and a couple of starts here. I thought this may have been one race you could kind of point to that said, okay, maybe speed's pretty good today.
Yes, I agree with that, but there's also a good track, and she likes it wet, and that helped her a lot. And you know what? Just nobody else showed up in this race. Mm-hmm. She ran fast and she ran impressively, but the track may have helped her, but I think the wetness is as much as anything else, and she was on the inside.
Here's the Vanderbilt now. The big favorite in this race was Trap Shot toward the outside. Sean Avery, we just highlighted a Trap Shot, trying to make a move to the outside. And here's Sean Avery, a horse that went to the front end beneath Joe Bravo. Set quick splits, 21-4, 44-2. But a horse that showed 2 back, he's capable of a race like this.
Right. He ran a 112 buyer 2 races back, a stinker last time. This race, they both run 112 buyers. Trap Shot came within inches of catching him. It was basically a head bob. The rail, I think, helped Callie Berchoa a lot, and that's an argument for the rail because he looked like he was having trouble in the turn, and he came back a bit. There's a head bob. They both ran well. The speed won. If you believe this was a speed bias, then if these 2 horses meet in the Vosburg or the Forgo, then you have to think the Trap Shot is going to drown the other one. It may well be the case, but I don't know if it's the track.
Yeah, well, we'll look at the final race from Sunday. In this race, a 1.1 miles, a long one here, and you have the 2 horses. The horse that's going to win toward the outside there, Hurling, making this big 4-wide move, and that's kind of atypical of what we've seen throughout the card, with the exception of Trap Shot.
And the favorite in this race, the 4, ends up running 3rd, Knockout. That horse moved up the rail, actually the second choice, I'm sorry. The second horse made a circular move. I know it was a 1.1 miles race, but in some ways you should say, shouldn't a speed bias be accentuated in the last race? And it really wasn't. Yeah, it was sort of a weird field off the turf and such, but I would argue, Eric, that that's the kind of race that might be more likely to be helped out by a bias.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A race with kind of unaccomplished horses like that. You'd figure whoever gets to the front end, as long as they're halfway decent, is going to be carried to the track if it was carried by the track if it was a speed bias. So all in all, some mixed results here. Some things you can point to that say yes, some things you can point to say no. Your final conclusion? Yeah,
my conclusion is it's up in the air a little bit, but I don't think there's enough evidence to say there was a strong speed bias. And remember, when you decide there's some sort of bias that helped or hurt horses, you're going to bet very much accordingly. And if you're wrong, you'll miss winners and you'll bet on a lot of losers. So just be careful. Don't jump to conclusions. And both of us feel there is some evidence that speed was good, but I don't think it's definitive.
I think it was more of an inside track. We saw a bunch of closers be able to come up the inside and run well. Only a couple horses were able to rally toward the outside.
I agree, inside as well. Once again, we love to hear your thoughts up here in Saratoga. We need all the help we can get. Trips and Traps at NYRAinc.com.